My dad always said this. He always said, if time's your most valuable asset, then why aren't you spending more time managing your time than managing your money? He said, Eddie, most people look more at their bank account, their investments, he said, than actually they look at their calendar.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talk to Rami Show. This is Rami, your host. Let me tell you something. For those of you who are listening and watching, today I have an amazing guest on the show, and we're going to talk about people, business, startup, leadership, and all the good stuff that entrepreneurs they should know. Eddie Wilson is in the house. Actually, he's on the show. Eddie, let me tell you a little bit about Eddie. It's very interesting background. First of all, he loves people and he loves business. And to the date today, he actually owned over 120 companies and exited 90 of them, which is unheard of. This is 90 successfully. That's huge. Also, he owns a private equity firm that operates such a brand, and the name is Collective Influence. If you don't know, but they have the brands such as Inspire Tour, that is amazing, and Go Media, Because Coffee, Empire Operating System, and Power Room Mastermind, and so many other businesses that we're going to talk about that. But Eddie, I am so happy that you are here, my friend.
Glad to be here. Thanks so much for letting me be on the show today.
Thank you, Eddie. Just tell me, before we started, how did you start? I know your grandfather was in real estate and your dad was in real estate and you are in the real estate as well, but you kind of pivot toward building businesses and scaling them and making them successful. Teach all these entrepreneurs what you had learned during all your ventures. Once you decided to pivot, I know you do real estate too, but everything that you do is kind of connected to helping others to scale, from the Inspired, the Empire Operating System, the program that you have, even with the coffee because that coffee, I love coffee. And then when you have a cup of coffee with another person, you basically connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, yes, I am third generation real estate investor. An entrepreneur. Even my mother is an entrepreneur. She has her own business. So even though I've been in real estate for a very long time, I grew up in the home of very entrepreneurial parents. And so I got into corporate and worked for radio and television stations, and then started an advertising agency because, for me, I just grew up in an entrepreneur's home. And so it just seemed like the right thing to do. And I don't fit very well in corporate environments. I build big corporate environments, but for me, it's like when sometimes I love the innovation side, and so I don't want to get stuck, and I want to keep pushing, and I want to create and innovate. And so I did. And the first company I exited, it was kind of an accidental exit. I wasn't meaning to exit it. I was looking for capital, and I found someone that was willing to lend me capital, and then we got all the way to the end, and they ended up buying my business instead of just lending me capital.
Wow.
And so it was then that I realized, like, I could actually do the same thing that my grandfather and my father did with real estate with businesses. It's really the same thing. You just have to have a couple extra components. And with real estate, there's a fixed comparable price model, right? Like if it's hard to get a multiple on a house, right? Like you're going to get the value, whatever the house is down the street sold for, you're going to sell your house the same, right? It's comparable pricing or comp pricing. For businesses, however, there are multiples. And what I realized is if I could put my effort into businesses, I can get a 6 or 7 or 10 times EBITDA or top line revenue, which to me, if I could architect that correctly, became a lot more lucrative than real estate. So what's happened is I've been building and scaling and growing businesses, exiting them, and then I dump all my money into real estate. Real estate's a great long-term wealth generator and a way to keep wealth. Private equity is a great way, small businesses is a great way to accelerate wealth in a very quick period of time.
Yeah, and as I saw you spoke on the stage in Austin, Texas, and I really love you have a tremendous passion for people. As you said, you manage 6,000 people, Eddie. That's not an easy thing. And it seems you don't like corporate. Corporate culture is different.
Right.
But everybody works for you. You know people. You're very well connected with your troops. How do you create such an environment?
Sure.
It's not an easy task to do. Trust me, I've been there. It's not that. But you apparently figured out the secret sauce.
Yeah. To me, it's about hiring people and understanding what they're driven towards. We have a very specific process for how we hire. Most people hire people from their experience. What have you experienced in your life? What are you able to do for me? And you give them money based on what their experience is.
Wow.
That's the last thing that we look for. For us, we use a tool called Predictive Index that ultimately maps out their drives. What are they driven towards? Then I hire people, we call it the 3 interviews. We hire them off their drives. What do they want to accomplish in life? Number 2, we hire them off of their core values, right? My core values are honesty, integrity, passion. I want somebody to tell me the truth no matter what. I want them to do the right thing when no one's looking, and I want them to come self-motivated, right? Like that's what I want. So as I'm hiring, if they don't align with those core values, then they're not going to be a good fit for my organization. Lastly, then we look at their previous experiences. So for me, as you're building culture, it starts with how you hire people. Oftentimes we hire people that are amazing. They're rock stars, but they're bringing baggage from other experiences, other cultures, and they're going to bring all of that with them. It's, to me, it's like, it's kind of like the United States, right? The United States is just a melting pot of
exactly
every culture that came into the world. And you go to Chicago or New York City and you've got all these different sections. And really that's what work is you have people coming from every walk of life, every race, every gender. And somehow you have to have this cohesive path for them all to go in the same direction. And it's not an easy thing. That's the hardest thing to do in business is manage people. But to the degree that you can manage the people, you can find success. People often think that it's my ideas that get me to success, and it's not. It's my ability to connect and manage and lead people.
And then what you do when people are disappointing you, like, said, oh, okay, like that. I'm sure you got disappointed. What you do? How is your reaction? How you deal with that? Because a lot of leaders right now, they really don't know how to do that.
The first thing you have to realize is everyone's going to disappoint you at some time. There are no perfect people, and you're not a perfect leader. So you start with that in mind. Is that, there's no way to actually, create a perfect environment with perfect people. So what you have to do is you have to make allocation for maybe some of the mistakes they're going to make. You're not going to have perfect people, so you better just predict when they're not going to be perfect, right? My belief is, and this is a belief that not a lot of people hold, is that with your employees, 80% is actually good enough. Most people are like, no, 100% is good enough. It's just not true. The fact of the matter is they come in with baggage, emotions. They're not going to be on top of their game every day. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking at what their capability is, and then I'm trying to reduce it down to an 80% expectation of their full capability, right? So that gives me some buffer. The second thing I'm doing is you have to take the mindset of what type of leader you want to be. I want to be what I call a player coach, right? So that's the type of leader I am. That would be like somebody who's actually willing to play the game at the highest level, but also willing to step into the game and make everyone else better around them, right? You have dictators, you have people that are the strategic thinkers. You have, for me, like, I love business. I eat, live, breathe, sleep it, right? Like every day of my life, I think about it. So I'm always in the business with the people, right? The thing is I also want to be a coach though. A coach is helping people see the areas that they could improve. And a coach is somebody who holds them accountable to a game plan, right? So for me, I'm holding them accountable to the game plan. Here's where we're headed. This is your responsibility and where we're headed. And I'm going to help you improve along that journey. I always say there's 2 types of leaders. A leader takes people from point A to point B. A great leader takes people from point A to point B while making them better. That's the type of leader, coach, player coach I want to be.
And I'm sure you have this philosophy that hire people smarter than you. How you define that? Because some executive, they don't want to do that. They I have seen it that they don't want to surround themselves with the people smarter than themselves because they think, number one, it's just not good. It's not looking good. But I think, and I'm sure you have the same idea, that it's actually is not it's much better to hang around with the people smarter than yourself.
Absolutely. The one thing that I always say is my people are not going to outwork me, but I want them to outthink me, right? Like I'm not going to be a lazy leader that's just going to expect them to work. Like I'll pick up the shovel and I'll work side by side with my people.
Wow.
But I do want them to outthink me. Here's to me, one of the greatest lessons I've learned in business, and it's really captured well in Ryan Holiday's book called Ego is the Enemy.
Yes.
When your identity is your business, then all of a sudden you have to be the pinnacle character. If your identity is who you like, if you find self-identity and trying to understand your greatest self, and it's not created by the business you have, then you can play a role and you can find fulfillment in that role while your identity isn't tied to your business. That's a big lesson for me because identity is, or ego is thinking about your role higher than what it actually is. We all have a role. My role as CEO of our company, founder, owner, I have a role. But can I go build all the websites and technology and shoot all the videos and build, can I go sell everything? No. If I try to do everything, I'm going to be limited. So ego is your greatest enemy because ego actually keeps you repressed, right? If you can let go of the ego and realize you can bring in great people that you can prop up, you can promote, they'll actually take you to the level that you want to, right? Like ego says, I'm going to take everybody with me. Ego, a lack of ego says, I'm going to hire people that are greater than me. They're going to take me with them, right? And I'll promote, support, and lead them.
One of the things you just mentioned is, the ego. And another thing that most of the CEOs or some, they're really not connected with themselves. Like, as you said, who am I?
Right.
Am I the corporation or am I Eddie Wilson? And these days with the rising of this social media, technology, everything, do you think the personal brand, it goes side by side of a CEO that is running the company? Because this is a question we get all the time. I'm just going to be a CEO. I don't want to be in social media. This is really is a problem right now that people say, should I be on the social media? Should I actually go out there and think about my personal brand? Because you are out there. I see your stuff. You talk about what you love, how you, help other people to your philanthropies, activities that you do. You are behind your company.
Yeah. So I think that we have to understand what personal brand is. And I think it's absolutely necessary today. When my grandfather was building businesses, my dad, it was called the age of industry or the industrial revolution, right? Then we moved into when I started kind of growing up and when I started getting into business, we called it the age of information, right? That's when everything went online and all the technology started to tie and data and the internet. Today, we've moved into what we call the age of influence, right? There's a reason why someone who's on TikTok is making millions and millions of dollars while never, ever having employees. And that's because our society values social influence over anything else. So in this day and age as a CEO, it's a necessary evil. I used to think I always just want to promote the brand of my company, let the brand stand by itself. And if I'm never noticed, I actually prefer that. I had an interaction with Grant Cardone. Andrew and I were down at Grant's office spending a day or two with him. Grant's like the ultimate personal brand, right? He's taking selfies with his jet and his Rolls Royces and all that stuff. That's who Grant is. And I had a perception of who he was because that's what he did. And so, he said to me, he was like, Eddie, you've had $1 billion exit. Why don't I know more about you? And I was like, I don't want you to know more about me. I don't want anybody to know about me. You should know my companies. He said, let me give you a belief. And he said, I believe that everything you want is on the other side of exposure. And I said, no, I think everything I don't want is on the other side of exposure. All the bad stuff comes with exposure. He was like, let me prove it to you. He said, do you want more money? And I said, well, I mean, maybe not for my businesses, but for my nonprofit. He said, well, if everybody knew what you were doing with your nonprofit, the whole world knew. If you had a megaphone and all the world could listen, he said, would you get more money? I was like, well, yeah. He was like, how hard do you have to recruit your employees? I said, well, yeah, we have an entire department. We recruit. He said, I don't. He said, people call me every day and say, Grant, can I work for you? He was like, because I have exposure. And he started going down that path. And I realized, you know what, like whether you like Grant or you don't like Grant, he is intentionally going after, he's got the megaphone and is bringing him everything he wants. And that's when I made the big shift. I decided, okay, I'll build my personal brand, but for the purpose of leveraging it to go use it for philanthropy or my businesses. And so every time I'm on the stage at the Aspire Tour, I'm always talking about philanthropy. Here's what I do. This is how I give back. This is my nonprofit. So I use my megaphone, right, specific to my messaging. But in the end, I've had to build a personal brand. And I think a lot of people need to. I think a lot of people that are aspiring entrepreneurs need to, but I think a lot of big CEOs, even the Fortune 500 companies, they need to be building their personal brand outside of just the corporate structure that they work through.
And do you think, we talk about money, but do you think money brings happiness?
No. I think money is a tool. And I think money is the ultimate, let's say, multiplier. I believe whatever's inside, the more money you have, it just exponentially expands it, right? For me, I grew up in a home where my father was a giver. He gave to everybody. My dad, if somebody needed something, he gave. For me, that's what I learned at a young age. So as I've grown up, the more money I have, the more I give away, because that's really what's inside. A lot of people, money just exponentially increases their greed, their traumas, their dissatisfactions, their insecurities. You find a very insecure person that gets money and they become even more insecure. You find somebody that's already happy and they get money, they're happier, right? Like, and so I don't think money brings happiness, but I think money is like pouring gas on a fire, right? The fire already existed. The gas just expands that flame.
Do you think we as a human, we should like feel that guilt of making money? Because
No.
I've faced that sometimes, be honest with you. You know, I say, okay, if I do that, then how about the others?
Yeah. The guilt should be tied to our motives, not to the methods, right? So I think that being poor isn't something that we should highlight and say that person's amazing because they're poor. I think we shouldn't also say that person's wealthy, so they're amazing because they're wealthy. I think money is just a tool. It's a byproduct of who you really are. So for me, I think I say this all the time, if you have a passion to help people, I think that you should work harder than the next guy to get rich, because if you get rich and you have a passion to help people, you'll do more with your money. I want to fan the flames of people that have a passion to help and create change in the world, create more wealth, right? Like that's why I have the Aspire Tour. I want great people to find the wealth and success they need because they'll make this world a better place. Do I want to promote greed and people that take advantage of each other and people that hurt? No, I actually hope that many of them struggle to find wealth, because oftentimes it's that wealth that causes more pain, right? Again, it's just the ultimate multiplier.
Because you have a very interesting belief of wealth distribution, even for your kids.
Yeah.
And why is that? I was listening to you and you said, okay, I just want to give them for what they need and take them to from here, there, but I'm not going to actually give them $1 billion. Here, go have fun. Why are you saying like that? Yeah,
because, one of the greatest lessons my dad ever gave me was him chasing his dreams, right? My dad was an entrepreneur. And when I was growing up, we didn't have money, like my grandparents may have, but my dad didn't. And he was chasing his dreams, and watching my dad chase his dreams and get through the struggles of life really showed me the path to also how I can chase my dreams, how I get to success. I think sometimes the greatest disservice we give to our children is automatic success. They need struggle, right? So what I say is my job is, I have 3 boys. My job is to provide them the education, the experience to get to success. not take away the friction, not take away the difficulty, not take away the hardships of life. Oftentimes when you have money, the easiest thing to do is to throw money down at hardships so that the kids don't experience hardships. Hardships are actually what build them. It's like watching my dad build his business. It's what helped me see it. It's me growing. It's what built me. And so, yeah, I don't have this plan to give, I've sold companies for over $1 billion, and I have no desire to give my kids a bunch of money at the end of my life. What I really want to do is put that into the organizations I have that ultimately provide more experience and more opportunity for the kids around the world that just need that hand up so that they can learn and get educated and find their path, right? Like, my kids will never lack for opportunity, and they'll never lack for education and experience. What they may lack for is the finances and resources to get to their dreams, because it's in striving for that it teaches you life's greatest lessons.
Basically, you're going to create an environment, but how they're going to perform in that environment, it's up to them.
It's up to them.
It's up to them. And, you just mentioned that you have a lot of nonprofit, like a clean project, the water. And then you have, helping, underprivileged people with the food and the shelter. How did you decide to go that route? I know you love people. Why did you decide to go just do that? Not actually donating directly to organization, because you are very involved. You're building, actually. You are overseeing it rather than just paying money.
Right, yeah. The very first philanthropic thing that I did was I was at an orphanage that my friend had started, and I saw that he didn't have enough resources to actually fulfill the need that was there. And we decided to just start giving there. And I believe in life, there's really two levels of purpose, right? Like, people come to me all the time, Eddie, how do I find the greater purpose in my life? And I always say this: I don't even know if I've found the greater purpose in my own life. Yes, I have the nonprofit, and yes, I'm doing all these things. But I think what purpose looks like is it's almost layered. And I feel like, number one, you have to start with what I call the lesser purposes, right? Like being a good dad, being a good spouse, being a good family member,
Amen.
being a good friend, right? Like being a good boss, being a good employee. What does that mean? What's that? What being good, or being, like, to me, I believe that it's giving more than you receive. It's simple, right? Like, you should leave everything you do better when you leave it than when you received it, right? Like, it's simple. Like, if you can master that in your own life, whether it's, being a good employee, did you leave your, it's a simple process, right? And so, are you giving more than you're receiving? Then on the top, on top of that, it's like, as you begin to exist in those lesser purposes with intention, I'm going to make sure I am a good dad, I'm going to make sure I am a good boss, friend. Then it's like, it gives you vision into greater purposes, right? I think oftentimes people struggle with, what's the big purpose in my life? Because they're not just focused on, but what about today? Am I actually going to give 100% today? Am I actually going to be a good person? Am I going to help somebody that doesn't have help today? It's in helping and that's all I was doing. That's how I found my kind of first step in. Was I was in a place, I got invited to an orphanage, I saw the need, I fulfilled the need. Then all of a sudden it began to open up around the world, and then it just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Now we're in over 100 countries, and we're building orphanages and feeding centers and digging wells and building sustainable businesses. And I don't know what my ultimate purpose is, but what I know is what I have and the opportunities I have in front of me today to help others. And the reason I called my nonprofit Impact Others was because I want to make sure that in every area of my life, I'm creating a positive impact on those that I've been given opportunity with, right? If I find an orphan, I want to make sure that they have housing. If I find somebody who's hungry, I want to make sure they have food. If I find somebody who's lacking education or nutrition or whatever it is, I want to help them. If they're lacking clean water, I want to help them. And so for me, it's just about taking advantage and being a good steward of the opportunities that are sitting right in front of you.
But you are involved of so many things, Eddie. And I know you have people around you that are smart, they help you. But how you personally manage your time, really, your personal time. But you are always on the move, and you're always into the business mode. And I have seen you, is how you manage that. Because I do a couple of things. Sometimes I say, oh my God, I'm late on this. How do you do that?
Yeah, I do have a great team. And, behind any person that's doing anything of substance, there's always a great team. And so I could never take away the team that actually makes this possible. But for me, the one thing I focus on is time. I don't focus on money, and I don't focus on purpose. I actually focus on time, being a good steward of time. So my dad always said this. He always said, if time's your most valuable asset, then why aren't you spending more time managing your time than managing your money? He said, Eddie, most people look more at their bank account, their investments. He said, then actually they look at their calendar. For me, I am hyper focused on every minute of every day, getting the most out of it. And I think sometimes people think that that's a good statement, but they don't actually do it. For me, I actually run an app called Toggle on my phone, where right now it's running on my phone, and I know every hour of every day what I've actually given my time to. At the end of the year, for the last 13 years, I've given that to my CFO, and I say, tell me what my time produced in revenue to make sure that I'm making good use of my time. So I know what the exchange of every minute of every day is for me in value. Now, that's my active income. I also have passive income in real estate and stuff like that, but I govern my active income. So I know every day when I exchange. So when you do that and you put a time dollar value on your time, right? It begins to help you manage it better, because then we're programmed to look at value based on money. If you put dollars tied to your time, then all of a sudden it helps you manage your time better, because all of us innately say, "Oh, we want more money. We want to earn more." So for me, it's like when I say yes to something, that means I have a dollar amount that I've actually agreed to, right? And then I'll do simple things like this, like just a simple trick. People fill the time you give them. So when my employees ask for a half hour, I give them 15 minutes. When people say, can I have an hour every time? I'll say, I'll give you 30, right? Like, because my time is so valuable. And then when people come into my meetings, it's not like, how's the weather? How's your day going? Let's talk about sports. It's like, okay, Eddie, we got 15 minutes, so let's jump into it. And they come into my meetings full on sprinting, and I get through double. If you spend a day with me, you realize I get through double what everyone else does, right? And that, I'm always trying to give myself a competitive advantage to everyone else trying to do the same things I'm doing. The way that I do that is I maximize my time.
This is actually, I feel this is my free coaching session, Eddie. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask you a personal question. How can I learn to say no? I'm a giver. I help so many people. I have this problem, and I admit it. Here, guys, hear me. I'm really working on it, and it's really hurting me. And I don't know how to manage that.
Yeah, I struggle with that too, because I'm a giver. I want to just help and fix, and and I know that if somebody is hurting or they need help, I want to jump in and do it. The thing is if you don't know what your time is actually worth, I know what my time is down to the minute, right? Like I know you go back 13 years and I can tell you what I've earned, how much, but I also know on average I work 13.3 hours a day. I know I average 6 days of 13.3 hours a week. I know how many hours, how many days, and I've done that for 13 years. So when somebody says, Eddie, would you mind helping me do this? The first thought that goes through my mind is that a good value use of my time? Not is that a good use of my time, but is it a good value? If I know that I make $836, every hour, right? Typically when I'm working, or whatever that dollar amount is, then I have to think like, okay, it's for instance, like sometimes, Andrew and I, we have a private jet, and some people will say to me, Eddie, you could give so much more to orphans around the world if you would just fly commercial. And it's like, no, you don't understand. You've missed the entire equation. The time that I'm actually saving by not going to the airport, by actually being now I have a very inexpensive private jet compared to everybody else's private jet, because I'm still frugal, right? But in the end, the amount of time, and then I put on that jet people that I'm going to meet with, and I'm going to maximize it. So I don't just hop on the jet and fly for an hour. I put people and I schedule appointments on the jet. So it's like, I'm actually using that time. So if you look at it, I'm actually making money with my private plane. If you look at the hours and how I exchange them versus going to an airport, sitting in lines, hopping on a plane, sitting there. I don't get to pick the people next to me on a commercial plane, so I don't get to have meetings in that, right? And so I'm maximizing my time, and I could prove to anybody that actually wanted to know how valuable that jet is to me financially based on the time that it takes. So for you, the easiest thing to do is to get a value of how much your time is worth. Then will help you say no, because then you're like, yeah, I've had some people say things like, hey, would you mind stopping over here and helping me do this? And in my mind, I think, yeah, I would love to. And then I think, I could actually pay somebody to help you do that personally. I know that sometimes that seems a little impersonal. That would cost me a fourth of what it would cost me if I actually went and did that. I'd much rather just pay somebody to go do that for you. It's the old adage of, some guys still mow their own lawn and they've got their own, it's like I sit there and I look at my lawn guy and I think, I love mowing the lawn. I actually really enjoy it. Like I'm in Florida and it gets hot, but I still like mowing the lawn. I like yard work. But the thing is I have to make a conscious effort. I'm going to do yard work, that I'm doing it because I love it, not because it's like most people just look at it and go, well, I don't pay some guy $250 to mow my lawn. It's like, well, my time is worth way more than $250. I definitely have to pay the guy to mow the lawn, So I think that's the easiest way to get into a time management process, is understand the value of the time.
And this is, I have so many questions, but I want to wrap it up quick for you. I know you're busy, but how you cut people out of your circle?
Yeah. That's hard.
I know you have done that.
You have to.
And how you do that? How you just say that, okay, this is not worth it. With all due respect, I like you, but, sorry.
I do it in a very kind way, where the people that I don't spend time with, oftentimes just believe I'm really, really busy, right? And because I just don't allocate time towards them, right? Like my kids, I allocate time towards because I want to spend that time with them, right? There are people in my life that they think that I don't know that there's only ever been one person that I remember that I said, hey, you and I, there's a conflict here. You're just not good for me and I'm not good for you and I need to remove you out of my life. There's only been one person like that. So I don't have that conversation.
Okay.
What I do is I architect my time to make sure that I'm spending my time with the people that I want to be influenced by, and I'm not spending the time with the people that I don't want to be influenced by.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key. And where the Inspire goes, because I really love what you guys do. That's really educational. The speakers that you bring, Marcus Lemonis, Connor. Actually, Connor was on my show. We had so much fun, and Marcus is going to be in the show.
Good.
And we're talking to Andrew too. Andrew, say, hey, let's go, Eddie, go first. Yeah. And you bring all this knowledge to people for this much money they have to pay. What is the philosophy on that? I didn't get it.
My belief is you build your businesses by building community. Every successful business I have is tied to a community. So the success of my private equity firms has always been I've owned the community, and then I look at what they need in that community, and then I build a business to service it. Right. So I have companies like Think Realty, that's a big media platform for real estate investors. The American Association of Private Lenders, it's a community. I own a community called FitCon. It's large fitness convention. Aspire, which is small businesses, right? Small business owners. And all of those communities, what I do is I get them to come in through value, right? So I say, hey, come hang out with Marcus Lemonis. Let Marcus Lemonis for a couple of hours. And I pay Marcus a lot of money to come do it, right? And I'll lose money on those events. But what I do is then I build the community. I then try to see where they want to go. Are they interested in real estate? Are they interested in speaking? Are they interested in, business? Are they interested in growth? What are they interested in? Then I kind of start taking them down those pathways. And then when they get down there, then I see what do they need? So they might need CPA. Like the largest company I've ever exited was an insurance company. Wow. The way I built that insurance company was by having Think Realty, a real estate platform, that I actually provided insurance for all these people that said they needed insurance, right? So for me, I'm always building businesses from the community. So Aspire is really just my effort to aggregate and put all of the small business people in America into a community.
You guys, you and Andrew, the whole community, you guys doing a fantastic job.
Thank
and
you.
You guys who came here in Austin, and I know it was a pilot, and then we talked, but it's gonna grow. I'm telling you, Austin is a hub. Yeah. And I'm here to do anything. I told Andrew, I'm here, been in Austin for 30 years. Just name it, man. I help you out,
Very cool.
All that stuff. But, what is your advice for the people that listening and, they're watching, they're entrepreneur and they want to scale their business. Mm-hmm. You are special on that, like taking from zero to hero. What are your advice is for those people?
Yeah. For the person that's wanting to scale their business, they have to, number one, know where they are before they know where they're going. Most people just have in their mind, like, this is where I'm going, but they don't know where they are. And so I always say there's 5 phases of business. And I always say you have to decide where you're at first, then you have to take the next step. So number one, the first phase of business is startup. Startup is the early phase. It's when you're getting something off the ground. Phase 2 is what we call perseverance. That's a pre-profit phase. It's when you're in and out of profit. You're still trying to figure things out. You don't have all the right people yet. You don't have all the right things figured out. Third phase is we call viability. Viability is right people, right seats, right amount of capital, right? Products and services are working. Then you get to the fourth area, which is called scale. Then you move into scale. How big can I grow this? But you're growing it from a place of viability. And lastly, succession. Now that I've hit the ceiling of what I can do, what do I do with this business? Do I hire somebody else to run it? Do I sell it like I do? And most people are in perseverance, meaning they're not always profitable. They're profitable sometimes. They're not profitable sometimes. They're wearing multiple hats. They've hired a bunch of people, but they don't really have them organized well. And I always say that your first step is, if you're in perseverance, is to get to viability. Because when you get to a place of viability, then you can decide if you should scale or not scale, right? Most people are trying to go from perseverance. It's like, oh, I've got this business. I've got a dental practice. I've got an insurance company. I've got a, electrical company. And I made money last month. So I'm going to go spend all that money in marketing so I can go scale it and go big. It's like, no, you actually should build a foundation first, then scale from that foundation. And so most people need to know where they're at. One thing I talk a lot about this, I teach all around the world on this concept through my Empire operating system. And people can find more about that if they just search up Empire operating system. And I give a ton of just free content because I'm trying to help. To me, that's the backbone of America. If you can get these businesses solid, it really provides the right foundation for our economy and for helping people around the world. And so that's a great question. But number one, you have to know where you're at to know the next step in it, right? Most of the people that are going to be listening or watching, they're in and out of perseverance, and they need to figure out what viability looks like and get to viability first, then go to scale.
Do you think entrepreneurship is for everybody?
No. No.
I know you mentioned that before.
Yeah. It's the loneliest, hardest thing in the world to do. Wow. More people are depressed and struggling, and entrepreneurship is for a very special, specific group of people. Not everybody that's working at a W-2 job should jump out and start their own thing. You have to know, do you have that capability? And that's not a bad thing or a negative thing if you're not. Like, there are people that work for me who are amazing employees, and we've succeeded together. And to me, I always try to help them succeed and win with me. I try to create millionaires in my own company through my success. Wow. But not all of them are really qualified to do what I do. So it's about being a team player and understanding your roles and strengths. But no, not everyone should be an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I really appreciate your time, my friend. And you are a giver, not only your time, but your wealth, helping all other people from the startup to, $1 million company. And we all appreciate it. Yeah. And if people, they're going to find you, I'm sure you're on Instagram. We're going to put your, information on Instagram. But I really, truly, I'm appreciative. I'm grateful for you that you took your time and then here and talking to me. Yeah, and hopefully I see you around and being friends for many years to come.
I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
Thank you, Eddie. You have a wonderful day.